Hello, welcome to today's live. Happy Friday, end of the week. Hope everybody has had a good week. I'm in California and fairly close to the fires. I hope that everybody's safe as far as the fires go, and those that lost their homes and whatever, I hope they were successfully able to get out and can recover. Okay. All right, so what's the live going to be on today? Well, we're going to talk about some specifics of the TN visa, us being in America and our neighbors being Canada and Mexico. We'll talk more specifics about the TN visa. And then I'll do my typical question and answer period. So, as I always say at the beginnings, if you have questions, go ahead and write them now or whenever you get on. They don't have to be related to the TN. They can be related to any immigration subject, U.S. immigration, that is. And I will get to it after I'm done with my intro on the TN. And then from there, sorry, I got something in my eye. From there, I'll go through all of your questions and answer them one by one. Okay? But first, does anybody know how to get something out of my eye? Is this ridiculous or what? Right in the middle of my life. Nothing happened. All of a sudden, something came in my eye. Okay. Anyways, I think we're okay now. But if not, I'll put it on pause and go put something in my eye. Okay. Anyways, so let's get to the TN visa. So the TN stands for Treaty National, okay? And basically, if you're in Canada or Mexico, you're a citizen of Canada or Mexico, then you qualify. It doesn't mean if you're a resident of Canada or Mexico, or if you're happen to be in Canada, for example, on a temporary work visa. No, you have to be a citizen, okay? And I've done intros to TNs before, but I thought I would do a little more on employer responsibilities and preparation and so forth. Now, with the TN, you have to fall under one of the categories that's listed in what they call the 1603 appendix. Okay, and there's lots of different categories, and sometimes you fall squarely in, sometimes you don't. If my area for the last 30 years has been the gray area. That's where I live. And so if you don't fall squarely in, there's ways of making decent arguments that you do fall within a category of the TN, thereby qualifying, okay? A lot of times it's not just straight black and white. If it's black and white, I'll be honest with you, generally they don't come in my door. So if it's not black and white, you still might qualify. So if you've done your 15 minutes of internet research, you've looked to say, oh, I don't qualify because I'm not squarely within one of the categories. Well, give me a call. I might be able to determine how to get you in one of the categories, making some creative legal arguments. Okay? That's a whole worldwide difference than misrepresentation or lies. That's not what I'm saying. We don't pretend you're going to be an engineer if you've never gone to school. Okay, that's not it. I'm just saying that there's ways of getting into realistically gray areas that you might not have thought of when you just looked at the list yourself. Okay. Now, another fact exists. If you're a citizen of Mexico, it's more difficult to get a TN than if you're a citizen of Canada. That's just a fact, okay? Unfortunately. I mean, it's easier for people in Canada to just go to the port of entry, show the petition, and then come on in. So what is it that you have to show to get a TN visa? Well, of course, you have to show that you fall within one of the categories, as I've said, okay, or at least argue that, you're in one of the gray areas and therefore you should qualify. You, of course, need to show that you have an employer willing to petition you in that area. This is not a self-petition. You can't do this yourself. You have to have an employer. Has to be a real employer. Has to be a real job. And you have to do what it says in the job. So there has to be an employer letter that describes what the employer does, what the job is needed, how you're going to fill the job. Then, of course, you have to put your qualifications, how you fall under it, and then you have to show you're not inadmissible on any of the various multiple grounds of inadmissibility. And, of course, if that's approved, then the TN visa will be issued, and you will be able to get the TN usually for up to 3 years, okay? Sometimes they only issue it for a year. Whatever it is, you can get it and you can renew it. There's no limit on the amount of times you can get a TN. Where the problem comes is a lot of people, when they come to the U.S., want to become residents. Now, whether that changes or not, which it probably will, is a story of another time. But when they want to become a resident, usually the path, of course, is the employer files for the labor certification, the perm and so forth. The issue is TN does not have what's called dual intent. Okay, what that means is that you cannot intend to come here temporarily on the TN and go back, and yet at the same time intend to become a permanent resident and stay here forever until you die. Okay, TN doesn't have that. So what happens is if you apply for residency while on the TN, you will find it very difficult to extend the TN again, or go to the port of entry and get another TN stamped, because the moment they find out that you've applied for residency, they won't believe that you have non-immigrant intent, because you don't. I mean, you really don't. You've applied for residency. You have immigrant intent. That's why sometimes people say, well, should I do the H-1B or should I do the TN? Well, sometimes they have to do the TN because no H-1Bs are available. But if they want to do residency and if the H-1Bs are available, a lot of times I'll do a change of status from TN to H for the sole purpose that after the H, which has dual intent, they can both intend to be a non-immigrant and an immigrant at the same time. I mean, it's a nice little, tool, dual intent. And then there's no problem renewing. So if you're going to want to get the green card and you're on a TN, you have to time it properly, okay? So you come in on the TN, you fully intend to go back, and then the moment you get here, boom, you start on the perm, okay? This gives you 3 years to get the perm through, then the I-140, and then maybe the adjustment. And of course, it depends on the backlog and preference and all that stuff. But a lot of times, if you time it correctly, 3 years is enough to push everything through, assuming there's no visa backlog, in order to go forward and do residency without even having to do a renewal of the TN. Okay, but do keep that in mind, okay, about the dual intent and so forth. So another thing about TNs, of course, is the employer has to affirm what they're going to pay. And when you get to the job, you can't, decide to do other things. You can't decide to have a side job or open up a corporation and do other things. You wouldn't believe how many times I get people who want consultations where they say, well, I'm here on a TN, but I also want to open up my own company and sell widgets. Okay? It seems a little obvious that they had to go through all the trouble to get authorization for the TN, and that they think they can just then go do their own thing and make their own money on something else. That's not what they're here for. The immigration has given you authorization to do the TN, to work for the company in the capacity provided, not to do your own business, not to open your own corporation, and not to, what most people say, just be a silent partner and not do anything. You just want to have a corporation, you want to be the president, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that all given, there are ways of doing, opening your own business and all that, but that requires a specific kind of visa, especially if you're from Canada or Mexico, then you would do the E2, you wouldn't do the TN. The problem with the E2 is a lot of times it requires more money than you are required, than you have, okay? So that's that. So that, in essence, is a summary of the TN and some issues that go along with the TN, to hopefully make it easier for you to get it. Like with anything, you have to fully document the petition. You have to fully show everything that's necessary and have all the necessary exhibits. And then you have to comply with the terms of it after you get it, as does the employer. You can't play games with immigration. You can't pretend to come in on a position then do something else. Your employer can't pretend to hire you for a particular position then have you do 12 other things outside of the scope of the TN, okay, without filing an amendment to immigration if that were the case. All right? Okay, so that in a nutshell is it. So let me go back here and see if we have any questions. Okay, how's everybody doing? Gonna have a good weekend, hopefully. Okay, let me see. 1 second. I am just scrolling through. Okay. Hey, sir, how long does USCIS take to respond to a medical RFE? Okay, first of all, RFE is request for evidence. And you submitted something, probably an adjustment, and you probably did not submit the proper medical documentation, so they made you go back and get it. Either way, if you properly submit an RFE once it's requested, you're looking at 2 to 3 months. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more. Okay, I don't know if you're asking this question because you submitted it a year ago and you haven't heard. Okay, but if you just submitted it, you're looking at 2 to 3 months. And it depends, again, on what the medical RFE is. If you just did not do your medicals, and because you didn't know, and now you went and you did your medicals and submitted and there's no problems, then 2 to 3 months. But if, for example, you have something that is contagious or you have some issue medically that makes them wonder if you are inadmissible and might need a waiver, that's a whole different story. I mean, you might get a response that your adjustment is denied because you're inadmissible because of some medical issue, in which case you may qualify for a waiver. So it just depends. Okay? So I would need to see what exactly the RFE is. Okay. Let's see. Okay, just scrolling here down all the people that joined so I can get to the questions. 1 second. By the way, if anybody has any questions, now's the time to put them, because when I get to the end of the questions, that's when I say adios amigos. Okay, 1 second. Well, we have a lot of people that joined, but we don't have a lot of questions today, which is okay. Sometimes people just call to listen. Let's see. 1 second. Okay. A felon in chief, what a title. Yeah, I agree. Okay. Whoops. It just scrolled all the way to the bottom. Okay, I think we've done the questions for today. We just had one question today. So it's been a relatively short live today. But I just wanted to get out a little bit about the TN. So, if you have any other questions, go ahead and contact me in the normal manner, which by that, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, all the normal stuff. Just send me and I'll get back to you as soon as I can with an answer. Then I can find out what the issue is, problem. I let you know, what it'll take for my firm to help you. And then we go from there. All right. Well, everybody have a good weekend. And it's been nice talking with you this morning.